Hello, everybody. Welcome to I Command. This is TV Boy here, and we are going to be talking about Season 6. The season has now ended officially, and we're going into Season 7. And I always like to do kind of a recap or sunset show for the season. And we have a guest today to help us talk about Season 6, Destructor. Welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
Yeah, it was good to
How
have
are
you on
y'all?
last time. Today we're going to talk about season 6 and how it went for Destructor and kind of get your take on how the season went since you did pretty good this season, actually, right?
That's I am embarrassed to try to say that now because the last tournament was right after I started looking into Crisis Protocol, so I played it a little wonky. My first game against Tuca, if you saw, that was the only one that was live streamed, and I just bombed that one, sent Migs out into the middle of nowhere. But yeah, mainly Adepticon. It was Adepticon. I did a lot better at that one. I'm still really proud of. My gosh, that stupid one space. Yeah, you'll probably hear more about that later.
Nice. Yeah, you did. You got second place at Adepticon. So let's go ahead and jump into it so we can kind of get through it. It was a long season. I'm gonna kind of talk about the timeline here for season 6. This is our first 9-month season in total, if you count the first spoilers to the end of the season happening now here in April. So let's see. Starting off July 2021, season 6 spoilers still just started. And I should mention, so this was the first season since season 3 that actually wasn't part of the initial design. I had a baby in December 2020, so I was off. I took off time from the project from December 2020 to June 2021, and I came back to help out with the release of season 6. So it was actually a new. All the cards were new for me too, because I had been kind of avoiding looking at the design Slack that they used to design the cards. So that was a lot of fun. Then we had the playtest season after July into November. November we had the community vote in 2021. Everything got approved except for Mandalorian, which we're going to be talking about probably. Only got He got partially approved. This is season 6 is also when we moved to the new approval system where cards could be fully approved, or if they didn't get enough votes but they didn't get voted out, they would be partially approved and on probation. And that was Josh came up with that system as a way to give people kind of a middle option when voting. And then moving into the competitive season, we had a few tournaments. And then January 31st, 2022, we had the big nerf. Mando got nerfed as well as guild programming. And there were a couple other changes to cards that are a little less consequential. And then, of course, March 26th, we had a Adepticon tournament, which was 10 people for IACP. And now we're here getting into the end of the season. So, kind of laying out the timeline there, Destructor, why don't you talk about what was your uh, what was your personal experience with the season? You can talk about like what you thought. You what I mean, we had playtesting or not playtesting, competitive leagues as well that I think you participated in. Just kind of give us some of your thoughts so we can kind of put a cap on season 6 here.
Yeah, I mean it was good. The tournament scene was definitely, shall I say, different. I know we're still backpedaling from what happened with the VSTs, and then we had all of a sudden we had Adepticon, and then that was very awesome in a lot of ways, and then had the one big was a little disappointing they didn't have the prizes. For those of you who don't know,
Mm,
they reached out and asked us, hey, do you want to have a tournament? We have all the prizes from 2020 that we'll give you for the if you hold the tournament. We say yes, we go. They say, hey, we found them, but we lost them again. So that was disappointing. But other than that, being back at Worlds was amazing. Being able to go back to in-person tournaments, and for me, because I joined at the beginning of COVID, I had no idea what it was like to go to a tournament, and my gosh, was it amazing! I was literally shaking by the end of it, and that has got to be the highlight.
nice. Yeah, that was disappointing. I don't know if I shared this publicly, but we literally had an email that weekend from somebody in FFG being like, these boxes and these campaign cards is we all we could find. We couldn't find the other ones, so it was like, ugh. Anyway, what can you elaborate on what you mentioned about the tournament scene changing? What did you mean by that, or walking it back or something?
Yeah, sorry. It's everything is really fresh when you've got that such a long competitive season, you know. But definitely it was evolving. Towards the beginning of the competitive season, we had obviously we had Mando come in. We had characters like Cara Dune, and the amount of fluctuation that happened in the meta was not. I think I personally underestimated how much the meta would end up fluctuating when I was looking at the spoilers and everything. And this was the first season that I could say I was really involved in. I got into the game back in season 4. That was when I started actually learning how to play. So I was around for the season 5 spoilers. I guess I was technically around for season 4 spoilers, but I didn't know what a spoiler was. But season 5 spoilers, and I played through season 5, but I wasn't very good. So season 6 was the first season where I could actually get into the tournaments, get into the competitive scene, and actually try to talk about the meta. And I'm honestly still very very embarrassed of the fact that back at the very beginning, I had a few friends over and to try out the new Mando. I built a list that accidentally ended up being 41 points. Felt a little bit bad about that. And then the entire time I whooped them, obviously because they were new to the game. I felt a little bad about that too. But Mando with 16 health was so much fun watching him just suck up shots, like soak up shots like no one's business. And I'm still embarrassed of the fact that looking back on it, dropping him to 14 was a really good idea, but it was so much fun for me back then. I was not happy when it dropped to 14. But anyway, the tournaments, the tournament changing, the scaling back of VSTs at some point. I think Isaac. I don't know if it is it public knowledge how that all went down with the VSTs.
Isaac got really busy this season. He had a lot of personal stuff going on that I don't know if how much of it is public. Not bad stuff, just life stuff. So I think he had to kind of step back from that, and I recognized a need for competition. So I used to sponsor tournaments through the channel, and I just decided, hey, let's just do. I think we started doing monthly tournaments where we put out a poll each month and said what's the date everybody can make it, and then we just went with the date that the most people said yes, and we I would just run a free tournament, usually 3 rounds on a Saturday morning, and that ended up being the new format I think for this season, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, it was an interesting change. I liked it because the switch to like the free tournaments and I can't remember what the winning prize for all of that was, but you would just come, you'd get a few cards and you'd get to play a lot of IA. It was really good being able to count on there being a tournament, but also it wasn't you could play a more competitive tournament. I was excited that Adepticon, and especially with the at home, you could have more of a competitive style tournament. But then it wasn't not every tournament had to be like that. You had the more casual ones that you still want to do well. You still want to get that nice alt art card, but in the end, it was nice and friendly, and it was great for play like a play testing of feeling out the meta. It was the playtesting league we were spending so much time trying to figure out how are we going to fix Mando. Other characters too, but especially how are we going to fix Mando, that it felt like we never really got to know what the other characters. We knew what they did, how powerful they were, but it was hard to figure out how anyone was going to fit into the meta, how everything was going to come together in the end. And going to Adepticon, I'm happy. I'm very happy with how that worked out. There was only one Mando list. Josh was running Mando,
There's two.
Mando and HK-47, I believe. Sorry,
Yeah, there was two players running Mando.
were there two? I thought there was. I thought Josh was the only one running Mando at Adepticon.
No, there was. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. There was another player, but I think he went 0-3 or 0-4.
Oh, was that Kenton?
Yeah,
I think that
Kent was
was
running
yeah.
Boba Mando, And I think he was kind of
Oh,
getting
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he had not played for a long time, and he hadn't been playing on Vassal, so he was still kind of getting
Yeah.
reoriented.
Yeah, I noticed that. I felt a little bit bad for him because I'm like, I know this guy is. I know he's a lot, usually a lot better than that. Um, but yeah, Boba Mando I found is really. I had a lot of fun in a four-player game with that one. That was really funny to run around. That was the Temple Palace Gardens, whatever that one is for the four-player. It was a lot of fun there because you can focus all of your power, with the block, bringing extra armor. You can focus a lot of your power into one spot to just wrap up those VPs. But I didn't like it in in the main game. It's just not fun to play against.
Hmm.
But I also didn't see it doing that well. It would just get whittled down. But anyway, enough said about that. The turnout at the tournament, the way that ended up going was brilliant. The amount of season 6 items that were brought in, putting in who showed up. I know Bib made an appearance. We had Mara Jade was coming back. I was curious if she would make an appearance. I know I personally was running Migs. I think I was very happy to stumble upon an awesome team composition right before the tournament happened, so I could try something a little more unique. But it was a good variety of stuff. Although I can't help but mention the fact that three of the top four lists were Empire, and both of the top two lists had Palpatine. So that's worth keeping in mind. Watch out! I know Joey made top four with RGC and Riots, so he a lot of that, some of it is just people doing well with something that isn't necessarily in meta. Joey's gonna hate me for saying that, but either way, it's worth watching out for Palpatine because as the power level creeps back up to Tyrants of Lothal, that expansion, as everything starts to get to that same power level, Palpatine is just getting scarier and scarier and scarier.
Yeah, Palpatine's definitely been a force to be reckoned with this season. I think I checked my stats that I have so far, which are not complete, but I'll share those with everybody once they are. And I think Palpatine was in like 28% of all Empire lists from the competitive season, competitive play. So he's been doing really well and very popular. Um, so yeah, looking at we also had the leagues. I don't know if we talked about those yet. um, we had one competitive league that was 6 weeks with a top eight that was pre-nerf, so before the Mando got nerfed in January, and then we had the one that was after. Um, and I'll talk about my experience real quick. My experience, because I actually got to
You go
play
ahead.
this season. Normally, when I like have design cards in a season, I don't like to play them. I don't know. It just feels like self-indulgent, and I'm just more interested in seeing what other people do with them. But since I didn't design these cards, I like got to play with them. And so I played in the competitive league, and I actually went 6-0 in Swiss with Mando and IG 11 with Bib Fortuna. So that was a lot of fun getting to win a bunch of games off of Mando. And I think I was that really helped me to figure out like what that figure was doing and why it was so strong. And it definitely also helped us to identify guild programming as a bit of a problem uh, in conjunction with Bib Fortuna and Afra. Those all combined to be very strong with
Yeah.
IG11 in a way that he was not before. So, and then after that, I think after the nerf, I had been designing and talking and like helping refine the cards with the steering committee so much that it wasn't as fresh anymore. So I stopped playing a little bit. Um, let's talk
Yeah,
about.
eventually it gets into that routine, but yeah, overall the tournaments were a lot of fun. Adepticon was amazing, getting back in person, playing with in person with people in general, amazing, and having just yes, some of the playtesting, it was a lot of ups and downs, and it was really interesting, shifting figuring out the meta when the meta shifts so far to one angle into this one type of playstyle with tons of attacks and tons of dumping cards into getting into those attacks with Mando, with Cara, with even the Z6, and then shifting back into balance. That made for an interesting competitive scene getting readjusted. But other than that, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, why don't we move into talking about what we thought, or maybe what you thought was the most impactful card for, or cards for each faction, and then after that we can talk about list archetypes, and I'll use that section to go over some of the top four list archetypes from the tournaments because we had like seven tournaments, including the league top eight. So let's talk about impactful cards. Do we want to start? Do you want to just start with Mando?
Well, I think it's best to start with Mando, not just when talking about top cards in the factions. I wouldn't even say just talking about the top cards in the game as
Hmm.
of like the top most defining card of season 6. Mando in a way really defined a lot of what season 6 ended up being. In terms of what got balanced and what got fixed, it was all troopers, obviously. But in terms of what all of the focus and playtime was on, and what the meta shifted to, Mando was at the heart of it. Not just because of him being Mando, but also because of what a lot of what Mando is was what you also again saw in Cara, in the Z6, and a lot of that. So starting with Mando, pulling him up, do we want to reread the changes he went through, or
Yeah,
is
I'll
that
go. I'll go over it real quickly here. So Mando came out 6.0. He he didn't have his spear yet. He was, or no, no, he did, but it was just Pierce 2, and it was a single attack. I don't really want to go into the like nitty gritty of like protective fire, how that all got changed. Um, I'll
yeah,
just
that
say
was a
that
bit chaotic.
yeah, it was kind of it was yeah, I won't go into that, but 6 7 or no, sorry, I'm on 7.0. My brain's on 7. 6.0, he came out and he actually was doing very very badly. His win rate, he was super popular, but he was not winning. He was winning like less than 40%, I think, around high 30s. As was Bib Fortuna. And actually all scum was just really bad. Migs Mayfield was really bad. So
Hit like
we
a wet noodle.
yeah,
I
he was
think
not.
that was the most popular quote anytime you bring up Migs. He hits like a wet noodle. It was the same thing every time.
Yeah, he didn't do enough damage for a 7 point figure. So come 6.1, we buffed everybody except Bib and Scum. I don't think we buffed Bib yet because we're still trying to figure out what to do with him. But Mando got a second attack added to his spear, and Migs got like a big damage buff for his single attack. I'm just mentioning Migs because it's all like tied together for me because it was like Scum faction bad, fix Scum. Uh, that turned out to be way too strong, just giving him like two three dice attacks for one action. I think it came about because we were like, well, it's a melee attack, so he's restricted by that. But it turns out speed 5 mobile with reach is very easy to move across the map, much more so than like a speed 4 without reach and without mobile. So then we nerfed his spear in 6.2, so it was just two dice with Pierce 2, I think. And I think that was about. Oh, and that's when we changed Protective Fire. There was a Protective Fire, like everybody, it was very controversial the way it worked. And I think we got it right on the 6.2 where it was like wherever the child is standing,
Yeah.
if you attack that space, then Mando can shoot you. And I think that people really like that, so
Mhm.
that worked out well.
I must
Um,
say that is the my proudest achievement of this season was probably just talking about that whole discussion right there.
oh yeah, yeah,
Because the best way to sum it up is that at first Mando's 6.0 Mando was Onar's extra protection card. It was just
yeah.
shooting people back when they shot at your teammates, so you just would murder Mando.
But it had to be a unique
7.1
figure too.
was return fire.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it had to be unique. So it was just this really specific, really easy to either you would either avoid and shoot like Greedo, knowing that you don't want to be shot back at, 7.1 was just return fire,
6.1.
and then it had also the specific, you had to have the child exhausted by that point. So then the child would always exhaust, and it just felt like you just given him return fire. So then 6.2 ended up the Mando was actually protecting the child, which is kind of the whole point of the ability. It was named protective fire for that reason, right?
Hmm.
But the way he defined the meta more broadly, because we've obviously gone over Mando and what he does and why he's powerful so many times. Built on Hope did a whole episode, like, or a whole section about that too. Mando, beyond what he did for just his power, he really redefined a lot of. He defined a lot of what the season was. I keep mentioning Cara Dune because she was the top figure in Rebel, and the Z6 followed the same format, and MiGs followed the same thing in a lot of ways. It was just all from the same. I mean, cut from the same cloth, you could say. It was these multi attacking powerhouse figures, these high cost figures that can get off multiple attacks and can buff up each attack with their cards. Kara had Call the Vanguard to get an extra attack, plus she had her push, which she could self start parting blow, so she could theoretically get off 3 attacks and a free smash all in a round. And then Mando, of course, he was getting after 6.0, after he was buffed up to be more usable, he was also getting 3 attacks in a round usually. Z6 is a guaranteed 2 attacks in a round, and Migs is usually they either have to avoid shooting him or he was going to get 2 attacks in a round. The thing that Matt made that and Migs had Call the Vanguard, sorry, so 3. The thing that really defined that as being problematic is that none of those were like brutality attacks. You could put everything into one figure, all of it. So if Cara Dune, for example, went first, you could use Call the Vanguard to get an attack, and then immediately activate attack, smash, self start parting blow, and attack. You just got 3 attacks and a smash off against a figure without your opponent being able to do anything in between. And it was all against the same figure. You could take out Vader in one activation. It was absurd. And then that is not counting all of the cards that you could pour into it, especially the Mando issue. I just call it the card dump issue. Again, it's being able. The Call to Vanguard was a big problem with Cara, as we know, in Parting Blow. But being able to use so many cards so quickly was absolutely insane. Again, Mando, it was you could run up, you were focused usually, and then if you had power tokens, which was why I kept running the Claudites with him, run an elite Claudite, give him the 2 power tokens. He has damage tokens. He's gonna run up. He's gonna hit them with the spear. It's gonna be a 3 dice attack, pierce 1, +1 damage, and then +3 more for assassinate. So now he's attacking you with a 3 dice attack, pierce 1, +3, +4 damage, and then he hits you again, 3 dice, and he'll end up with primary target, heightened reflexes, tools for the job. Now it's going to be a 5 dice attack, and just putting all of those cards. It's not even because, like, looking at his attack pool, it was overpowered, but it wasn't that overpowered. You weren't going to take out Vader in one turn with Mando. It was the fact that you would take out Vader in one turn with Mando because you were dumping half of your hand into one figure in one turn. That was really what defined it, is being the ability to pour out so many cards so quickly into one figure that they can't respond. And trying to figure out how to curb that issue and get everybody to still have those cool combos and those cool flavorful interactions without allowing them to rip apart IG88 in one turn.
Yep, and we talked about this a lot in the steering committee as well. I think something that has come up recently is there's an argument being said in the committee that like queen pieces that have the brutality restriction just are not cannot be balanced. As in they will not be strong enough. Which I might be misrepresenting, but that's the argument I've heard is that and they use Royal Guard Champion as kind of the example, even though he does really well with Joey. You don't
Yeah.
really see him get played by anybody else because it's really hard to capitalize on that brutality because you're always splitting your damage and not killing anything with your 10-point figure. But it's definitely challenging to balance big when you can do multiple attacks against the same target. That is also very hard to balance because it makes it very easy to kill things very quickly, usually without them being able to respond, like you just said. Um,
Yeah.
but you
I do
mentioned
think that with
Cara.
the Royal Guard champion, I will say that when you say no one else plays him, I did at Adepticon. I promised Joey I would. This was after the Royal Guard champion rolled 5 dodges in a row against me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a one in like 2,000 something chance. I Josh and who else? I think Josh and Kento and a couple other people were just crowding around watching Joey roll dodge after dodge after dodge. I had put 2 MiGs attacks, an Iden attack, and a what else was it? A blaze attack and a Thrawn attack all into Royal Guard champion in one round and did 1 damage. It was awful. But after that, I promised Joey I would play Royal Guard Champion, and I did try him out in a 4-player game, and he's actually really interesting. But yet, just getting to be able to not having to split up that damage was really painful.
yep.
And yeah, it's getting within range and getting all of that damage off. You need to not only have enough support figures to come in and be able to wrap up all of those kills, but you also need to be able to get within range of all of those figures.
Yeah, so and I'll tell you actually the secret to Joey's list, and he may or may not know this, but I think he does, is that Mara can play Flurry of Blades. And Mara is a
Yeah.
figure that takes other figures that are not good enough but have great command cards and makes them good. And that's just something that's actually true that I've seen since season 5 and season 6. Like in season 5, Vinto had this really high win rate, and it was very confusing to me. And then I realized it was because people were playing him with Mara, and she used Draw, and his command card is amazing because it just gives you a free attack. But his attack sucks, but Mara's attack is amazing, and she's a melee figure. And so,
Yep.
anyway, my point being that it's not so much Royal Guard Champions great; it's the combination of Mara and Flurry of Blades is really good. But kind of
Yeah.
moving
I
on,
I
and
was
I
just
also say,
elaborating. The brutality can be rough.
yeah, it's really hard to balance. And then the cards that the queen pieces we do see that get played, that from even from before ICP, Vader, Han Solo, IG-88. What do they all have in common? They don't split their attacks, and they get multiple attacks each round. Han gets an end of round, which he can target the same figure as his normal attack. Vader has a regular attack, plus he can do his parting blow combo to attack the same figure again. And IG-88 has assault. He can attack the same target twice. So it's not like we are doing new things or power creeping what's already been done. Like, this isn't, we talk about brutality like it's the standard, but it's not. The standard is Vader double tapping, Han double tapping, IG-88 double tapping the same figure. It's just trying
Yeah.
to get the right points cost and the right command card cost for that. Vader's 13 and he has to spend 2 cards to do that. Han is restricted by the timing of his end of round. You have to set that up. IG-88 is restricted by uh, he only gets
Movement.
2 movement
Yeah.
points if he
He
wants to
has to
double
be.
tap.
He has to be close.
Right, but he's also restricted to 3 dice because of his autofocus. But he is a hunter and he's got relentless, so he still hits pretty hard. Anyway, you just talked about Kara. Do you think that's the most impactful figure for Rebels from season 6?
Yes, I would say definitely. Again, it fits into that theme just because she started out so strong, and I was actually sleeping on Mara, or not Mara, Kara
Mm-hmm.
for a while. I didn't play much Kara because she didn't really fit my play style, so to speak. I didn't like having to deal with all of the weird timing of the parting blow stun, and the pushing away. I didn't care for how she was just kind of, how do I say, slow. And with Call of Vanguard, she was a lot faster, but being a slow character who could just eat a shot and then run up and delete your most powerful figure didn't seem interesting to me. As she's gotten more balanced, I've started to see more of the interesting strategy in her, but also building a list around her, building a command deck around her. Like when you're in the playtesting league trying to test all the things, it was really hard to not make a Cara list that had four activations
Hmm.
because I wanted to put Cara with Echo Base Troopers and Z6, and then I realized that I just spent like 30 points on two activations and no support, and I just didn't use her for a while. But upon actually getting a chance to use her, she's yeah, she was definitely way too powerful for a long time there. For all the reasons I just mentioned, she fit into that because she was so powerful and because she was so unique and expensive. She was the center of your list. A lot of people were playing her. She was getting a lot of. I think she had a really high win rate too, right?
No, that was the weird thing about Kara. She didn't have a good win rate. She never
Really?
really got above 50%. She was often in the high 40s. So that was a conundrum we had to face, and I was actually going to just speak to that. Was she was too strong anecdotally. We recognized that she created negative play experiences when she did, quote unquote, go off with all of her command card flurries. Um, but so that's why we did end up nerfing her, even though the data suggested it wasn't necessary. I remember we took away that like +1 block. We lowered her health, I think, and then we rebalanced her dice pool around the fact that she can do so many attacks in an activation. We also fixed smash. We had to fix that multiple times because it was broken in multiple ways. But
Yep.
she got approved by
Upon
one
playing her
vote as
further, she
well,
feels good.
huh? So she
Yeah,
got,
upon playing her, she feels good. So
yeah, I think she's in a good spot right now. She still sometimes does that thing where she just deletes two figures at the start of the round when you're not expecting it to happen, but it takes a lot of setup now to do that, and she's not so hard to kill with like a block token and her dig in ability. Um, and I should mention she got fully approved by one vote. She actually just narrowly missed getting put on
oh
probation
man,
with Mando, and she has avoided the nerf hammer that Mando's been getting because again her win rate has never really spiked the way we saw Mando. Like Mando was always high 60s before the January nerf, so he was justified that he was creating negative play experiences and he was winning too much for how popular he was.
yeah.
So that's why Kara didn't really get nerfed the way that Mando did, but she's in a good place. We're seeing her pop up. I've seen her in a couple top four lists, but she's not like all over the place. She's still I think she still gets played about as much or less than Han does. So that's a good place to be.
Yeah, that seems like a good spot for her. That seems nice. And I think a lot of people have also been sleeping on the Z6 who essentially had the same problem, which was dumping too much into one thing. That came from the focus, which was quickly fixed, but I do think the Z6 is a little it's not underrated, but it is probably a little underused just because it's so hard to get it to the table because there's only two groups you can take with it. But I do think effectively any problems or any play experiences that came from the Z6 came from the same general thing as Mando and Kara. But and the echo-based troopers are probably going to blend in very well as the rebels increase in their trooper stuff. The rebel trooper archetype is a lot better now. The Z6 is fun if you want to go for more of that blast, but you've got the echo-based troopers, and who CT-1701 was a lot of fun to play with. I think he'll settle in with any of the trooper lists that you want to play. I find him an auto include, not necessarily because his win rate is better, just because he's a lot of fun and he's fairly cheap for what he does. Even if it's not super overpowered what he does. But Kotun is an interesting one because now we're seeing Kotun Han. That that it's interesting, but I haven't seen a very high win rate out of that. How can you speak to how well Kotun has been doing win rate wise?
She's in like the high 40s, I think. She's like always kind of hovering right below 50%.
Yeah, okay. That's I mean that's what I'd hope. She's probably just gonna settle into wherever people feel like using her. Um, Again, the whole trooper thing, handing out a lot more power tokens is really nice. And I mean, again, looking at her card, she does what you want her to do. So if you want a trooper that is going to still add to the firepower of your list, but you don't have a ton of support because you're running troopers. It's hard to get focus on all those troopers, even if you are running Rebel Care Package, and she'll fill her role quite nicely. So to say, if we wanted to move on to Empire now, I know
Yeah.
Empire has been interesting this season.
Yeah, so
A
who
little
is
left in
the
the
most
dust, shall we say?
impactful figure for Empire from season 6?
Yeah, yeah, that is a hard one. Only because I feel like all of the figures have done something. Ooh, it's got to be one of the new ones. I don't think the rebalanced figures. I mean, the Dewback didn't change much. He does the same thing he's always done, just a little better. So I think he's nothing happened there. And Snows, I think they're not seeing a ton of play from what I've personally seen anecdotally, but they're a lot of fun. Ooh, which one? The Flame Trooper has gone through the most changes for sure, but Empire hasn't really had, I feel like, too much focus on it, except when talking about nerfing and then buffing the Flame Trooper. But most of it, I haven't seen much Empire being a big talking point. I don't think there is a figure to represent Empire this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. They're a little more evenly distributed, power level wise. So, let's say, so you'll say for
I
Scum it
would put
was
it between the
Mando.
Flame Troopers and the Dark Troopers, but
Okay, so Scum, Mando, Rebel, Cara, and Empire would be Dark Troopers or Flame Troopers.
something like that, yeah.
Okay, I'll give you
They
mine.
don't they don't seem to have anything in common, but
So,
I mean troopers, but that's always been the case.
so
So
here's mine, and I'm actually going to disagree with you on these picks, but it's just a discussion. Um, for Scum,
yeah.
I would definitely say Bib Fortuna has been like a major impact on Scum list building that we haven't seen in a long time. The Illicit Arms, which was a late add in 6.2, which I remember suggesting that, and it's been such a strong ability for Scum to be able to both modify their attacks just that extra amount, and then also get rid of dead command cards. And then to have such an efficient, like, have that efficiently be on a 3 point focus generator that can also sometimes generate a second focus if you need it. But honestly, I don't even see that ability getting used that much. And then changing the way, Scum can't use Temp Alliance with it, basically. Or not Temp Alliance. Yeah, Temporary Alliance for Rebels, or even like the Jawa for Rebel figures. So I've seen a lot more Bib than I've seen Rebel Care Package. In fact, I don't think we've really seen Gideon at all in Scum this season. I'm like looking. I don't have complete information. I'm still catching up from a lot of the game logs people have sent me, but if I look here, I have a few. So Gideon
While you look for that,
Argus.
I'll mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah, he's only been used in like he's in 14% of scum lists since competitive play has started, compared to 3PO,
Yeah, well, I think that the trick
25%.
is in the framing of the question because with Mando, I would choose Mando to represent Scum for season 6, but out of anyone in the season, the figure who will most impact the meta going forward, coming out of season 6, will be Bib Fortuna.
Hmm.
He has redefined Scum list building forever, and he has influenced he hasn't the season 6 meta was all built around the Mando Cara thing. That was where the discussion was. But Bib Fortuna will in going forward influence the game more than anything.
Yeah, and I have here so 25% of Scum List played C3PO, and then 65% played Bib Fortuna.
Yeah,
So
that sounds about right.
but
What was the
honestly,
wait? What was that? A 10% that didn't have either.
um, it would be
What do you think that could have been?
yeah, I'm not
Mern Rin
sure.
maybe?
It could be. I'd have to
I wonder
check.
if it was Mern. He always finds a way to sneak into something.
Um,
But
I was gonna say, so Bib. Oh yeah, I must say though
yeah,
that the Bib has been a success though, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of the other steering committee members. Just for Scum in
I agree
general, like
wholeheartedly.
yeah, just having that variety from Rebel lists where you just always saw Rebels and Scum playing the same two or three support figures. It just was not like it was. You didn't notice it sometimes, but it gets like boring. And now that Scum is now have playing their own unique package of Bib and Jabba, and Rebels get to play, 3PO, R2D2, and Gideon, like they feel about evenly matched, and they feel like you're playing a Scum list and you're playing a Rebel list, and you're not just playing like a Scum list with half Rebel figures.
Yeah,
I'll say for most impactful for Rebels would definitely be Kotun in my opinion. She's seen a lot more play like than Kara. You just see her in like almost every Rebel list. It feels like, and her abilities have really changed how you can play some of these figures, with the power tokens being really good for the heavy hitting Rebel figures, so they don't have to deal with dodges on their big attacks, and the reroll is really good, and just she fits really well at 7, and I've just noticed she gets played a lot. Like you just see her a lot in a lot of lists. And it's weird that her win rate isn't higher, but actually, interestingly enough, her win rate is the same as Kara, at least in the data I have right now. They're both at like 42%. So,
oh, that is interesting. I do think again, I going back, the same thing happened with Bib and Mando. Kara really defined the rebel lists for a lot of season 6, but Kotun will be the more. I agree that going forward, Kotun will probably show up a lot more than Kara when it comes to season 7 like tournaments. Yeah, I think she'll be a lot more popular.
yeah. And then for Empire, I still agree with you with Empire that like it's pretty evenly distributed. But I'm gonna have to. I'll give it to the dewbacks. I think I've seen more double dewback lists than any other, like season 6 Empire stuff. Like I saw a lot of Dark Troopers in the beginning, but they have fallen off for some reason. I mean, they seemed really good, but you don't really see them anymore. And then the dewbacks have been like we've seen Kyle take double dewbacks. I think with snowtroopers, and you don't see them often, but they just seem to do well whenever they appear. So anyway, that's just my take. But I think your choices are equally valid, and I think a lot of people would agree with your choices for sure for season 6.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with the Dark Trooper thing. It does seem like they've fallen off. I think it's because they had a lot of really fun gimmicks and things they could do at the beginning of the season that everybody wanted to try out and see how powerful they were and see how they would fit in. But going forward, for me personally, I've struggled to figure out how to like where to put them in a list. I know they're droid troopers, so it seems like they should fit with everything, but it just seems like there's a lot of other options of things I really need to get in the list before I'm looking for 6 points to fill up. And usually Thrawn is going to take that position faster because obviously Empire doesn't have a ton of support. So I think that's probably where the fall off in play is, in my opinion. Just anecdotally, again, my thoughts, but I I still do think that they're balanced. And on the dewback thing, part of me just says that that's dewbacks being dewbacks because the dewbacks weren't really changed that much, and I feel like even though they've shown up more, almost never saw anyone talking about them on the Slack, so I that might be just dewbacks coming back into the meta the way that they were when they first came out. Wonder
They're
if that's it.
well, I mean, they're still pretty rare. Like I think season 6 for Empire has been a lot of older stuff. To be honest, other than like Flame
Mm-hmm.
Troopers are starting to make a comeback since Josh got top 4 with them. I think in the league. But yeah, everything's kind of spread out, and we're just seeing a lot of Palpatine and a lot of ISB trooper infiltrators as well. But again, those are old figures, nothing new. Let's talk
Yeah,
about.
I think everything's just kind of for Empire just folded into the meta,
Mhm.
the way a lot of cards do when they're good but not great. They're just kind of chilling, right?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well too. Like I think they're second place, just behind Scum, like 1% if I look at my win rate by faction, and then Rebels is a little lower in third place. Let's talk about some of the new list archetypes that have kind of come out. And I think, let's see, we're doing okay on time. I'm going to try and read through these real quick. I'll just talk
Got
about,
about 15 minutes.
yeah, let's talk about kind of the tournaments we had and then the list we saw. So I'll go through these real quick. So we had the Jawa Cup on December 2021, 7 players. We had Joey with Royal Guards, Palp, Inquisitor, and Mara. So Force User Hunters. Josh was playing Mando, VP, so Sabine, Hondo, Afra. Kyle had Soren, Sentries, and Dark Troopers, so we saw the Dark Troopers doing well. Played with Sentries and Soren. And then you played Destructor, you played Mando with Onar Greedo and Claudite and Bib. Um, Next tournament was
Yep,
December
the usual.
18th. We had Herbie got first with a Rebel Hunter list. So it had Biv, Sabine, Loku with Kotun and CT. He went 3-0. Jake had Maul, Mara, and Tuskens, 2-1. Tuca with Wampas, Line Ambush, which we've seen Tuca play a little bit more later, with Mara and Hondo and Bib. I should mention. I'm going to mention every time Bib. So when you hear me say the list, assume that rebels are playing C3PO Gideon R2. Assume that Empire is playing Zillow Technique and Rule by Fear, and assume that
And an officer.
yeah, probably Officer, and assume that Scum is playing Jabba 3PO unless I say they're playing Bib. So anyway, moving on. Fourth place was Kyle, who was also playing Rebel Hunters. So Bib, Sabine, Loku, and then he had Mara and Lando instead. So Rebels came back to get 2 spots in the top 4 there. Then January 22nd, we had 10 players. Running Bear was playing Han, Kotun, Cassian, Jin, and Hera. So this was a archetype that I'm going to stop and talk about for real quick that got popular. I think Morgan was playing this list early, and a lot of people have picked it up because of the synergy between Han, Kotun, and Cassian. So Cassian giving out a bunch of damage power tokens, which then fuels Kotun's Dead Precise, which then fuels Han's giant 4 dice attacks to give him more rerolls and to be dodge immune. Have you played a lot
And
against
then, of
this
course,
list a
I'm sure
lot?
most of those were running Jin, right?
Yeah.
Because Jin, it can take advantage of 3PO, and then you can pile up the damage, the extra tokens on 3PO and spend them when you need them
Yep.
with
Jin
Kotun's
Jin
ability. So
Odan. And they usually give Jin Odan and Han a evade token with Kotun for cunning. And then he had Hera. So he got first place 4-1. And then Josh was running Mando Phoenix with HK47 and Headhunter, and that's when we started to see that combo get used more with Onar and Greedo. Derek ran Mando Phoenix, but with MHD and Onar and CT. So Derek always liking to go defensive list building with Scum. And Tuca top 4 Vader, Palp, Mara, Thrawn 2-2. So we saw. I think that was the first time we saw Vader in the top 4. That was all pre-nerf. So this is giving you guys an idea of what kind of the winning landscape of the tournaments was looking like. Post nerf, we had February 26th, 10 players. First place was Josh. This is where he debuted the Palp Iden ISB's list with motivation and generals ranks. That ended up being very strong, and he actually was on Built on Hope, and he talked about that winning that tournament. So check out their episode. Jake played Tank Jets and Iden, so that's kind of the precursor to the list he won Adepticon with. Tuka played Diala,
Yup.
Ezra, Ahsoka, Kanan, and Yoda, so we finally see Yoda making a debut in the top four. Kyle played Boba Mando, Afra Bib, Punishing Strike, and Heavy Fire. He actually went 3 0, but unfortunately, there's an asterisk here. He had a 41-point list, so sadly, and he discovered that and reported it on his own, and sadly, he wasn't able or wasn't allowed to continue. I still feel bad that happened to him, but you got to do what you got to do. But I mentioned that just he was playing Boba Mando post nerf and said it was really good. Um, I think that got tempered once he realized he had been playing 41 points for a while in like casual games. And he because we the other thing we didn't mention about Mando was we took away the free clan of two, which I think is what really
Yeah.
brought him down a peg. And I think since Kyle hadn't implemented that change, he thought Mando was still really overpowered after the nerf. But I think he came around later. I'm not 100% on that. But then we had Adepticon, 10 players. That's when Jake won with the Tank Jets Palp. Destructor, you played Palp, Migs, Thrawn, Blaze, Iden. So, a bunch of uniques.
Yeah, that was I threw that together a week before Adepticon. I played Josh against with it, and Josh was running his classic Mando HK-47 Headhunter list.
Hmm.
And after I tried to snipe Mando, he ran in and murdered my Iden like he does. And the fact that Migs kept getting so many freaking attacks, it was amazing. I just realized, yep, this has got to be what I play at Adepticon because the idea of getting Palpatine with Migs and then motivation. So Migs is always going to get the shot. He's always going to get 2 attacks per round. Plus, he's never going to get attacked. Plus, Palpatine can force lightning. It just felt so good.
Nice. And then, as we mentioned, Joey was playing Rogar Champion with Mara and Riots and Triple Zero. Then we had the Season 6 League ended with a top 8, and this one we actually incorporated a new rule for the top 8 that players had to lock in their lists. And this was actually partly inspired because Jake counterpicking me in the first league in top 8 to knock me out. So, shake my fist at Jake, and we changed the rules to, even though I'm not playing in this one, so it didn't benefit me. But also just makes it more interesting. It's kind of like a top 8 tournament or 8 player tournament. So right now, it's actually, they're still in top 2, but Derek played IG-11 and Mando, but 8-point Mando. And he also had Onar, Afra, and Bib and Devious Scheme. He's in the finals with Mark, who played 2 elite stormtroopers, which is the first time we've seen them finally get to the top cut. 2 ISBs, heavies with suppressive fire and officer. And then Morgan playing Palp Motivation with Iden Callus. Here's the 2 dewbacks, general ranks and officers. And then Herbie played Cara, Sabine, Biv, Loku, and Hera. So again, that Rebel Hunter package, that core of Sabine, Biv, and Loku with Cara Dune this time. Let's see. And then finally, we had the at-home Adepticon tournament, which had, again, Derek playing IG-11, Mando, Onar, Afra, Bib, and Devious. And by the way, they're still going through the top 8, or no, top 4. Lucas was undefeated. He actually went 4-0 with Kara, 2 Rebel Sabs, and Kotun in the Rebel Care package. Kyle played Vader, Iden, Callus, Thrawn. Went 3-2. And Josh played double Riots, double Flames, and Thrawn with 4 officers and went 3-1. So that's just to give you guys a rundown, kind of the tournament results. Um, Josh, what were some archetypes that you saw that were new to the game since you played in season 5? What were your favorites from season 6? Even if I
um,
listed them there.
did Josh show up? Where's Josh?
Oh, sorry,
I'm sorry, I'm
Destructor.
making fun of you.
I was, you know,
I had to. It was too easy.
I should mention I read Josh's name 5 times out of I think 7 tournaments we had. So Josh has done really well this
Yeah,
season. I gotta say he must be really stepping it up.
yeah. He's made it into a lot of top four cuts. Yeah, that was too easy.
Sorry about
But
that.
list archetypes. Again, that's where I'm starting to get hopeful because as much as the playtesting league was dominated by Mando, I think he's dropped back to a good place now.
Hmm.
And originally, I know we're all still worried because he's on probation of whether or not he's going to be too good, but from what I can see right now, the lack of him just dominating in tournaments and showing up left and right, it's a good sign that for all of his strengths, the cost of the command cards isn't always worth it. But as far as how season six has impacted that, I think that's where I feel a little bad, like in the Empire section, because Moff Gideon, the Flames can only show up so often because they're a squad upgrade. Moff Gideon is a very specific kind of list and a list archetype that isn't necessarily fully flushed out yet, and so that leaves the Dark Troopers who don't always fit in, and it's sad to see that not all of the Empire lists are even running anything from season six. But I am very happy with Migs how Migs is doing in Empire. I know Jake brought it up on the Slack a while back. I think Migs Palpatine is really good. Moving in Rebel, let's see. Troopers are a thing now. I am so stoked about that. The fact that Rebel Troopers are a thing, and if we can get the actual Rebel Troopers card upgraded at some point in the future, wink 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 wink, that would just be amazing to be able to get all of the troopers back into into play, so to speak. The whole the whole archetype has been just missing from Rebels for so long, having lots of flavor. Like you can get lots of attacks with lots of weird different dice pool changes. The flavor is there, and I love it. I think troopers are the main thing that have come out for Rebel, and it's been a lot of heavy weapons too. The heavy weapon trooper combo using a lot of, again, Call the Vanguard shows up every time, using a lot of Call the Vanguard with the heavy weapon stuff like Overwhelming Impact, which I believe was a season 5 card, right? And it got approved, but then we had to nerf it just recently.
Oh yeah, that's what that got nerfed from
Um,
2 points to 3 points.
yeah. So that was interesting to see. It was a lot of trooper heavy weapon, and I still think a lot of people aren't using the Z6 because that's hard to get in. But it's the troopers seem to be blending in with a lot of the other archetypes too. Again, Kotun going with Cassian and Han and Jin is really nice, but Scum has had a really interesting road. Seeing it's nice to see people discovering new things that were possible before people didn't know. The HK-47 Headhunter combo coming up, that was great, and then seeing a unique character like Migs, so we can get more of a smuggler feel. And going into season 7, which I think is our last topic, right,
Hmm.
is the smugglers, the scum smugglers coming in, and getting some of that. Maybe we'll get some troopers finally back in scum. Hopefully, those wing guards will eventually come in, and then feeling Bib making everything independent is really nice. The Bib Afra combo has been amazing so far, and of course you can't forget Jabba being in there. But otherwise, I think as far as season 6 specifically is concerned, just Rebel Troopers coming back has been the one big change in terms of what changes when you think about options for list building.
Yeah, and I will note that I don't think we've seen. I actually think Echo based troopers and Z6 have been MIA since the playtesting ended. Um, I don't know if they got nerfed too hard. I honestly don't think so. We just haven't seen anyone use them. Like, it's not that they're being played but not making it to the top cut. Like I've mentioned, like sometimes creatures are like that,
Yeah.
where they're popular but they just don't make the top cut. It's just we don't see anybody really interested in them.
Yeah, I think that comes from a lot of the whole. It's interesting. Like I said, a lot of it Kotun, and I wish it was more of Wildfire doing that same thing, but blending into the other archetypes. It's sad to see. I feel like that's the biggest thing that's come out of it. But the Z6 doesn't get into play because it has to come with the Echo Base Troopers and or Pathfinders. Pathfinders haven't had a place in the meta. I don't think in since I've been in the game, I haven't seen Pathfinders ever had a place in the meta. And otherwise, you bring them with the Echo Base Troopers. So if the Echo Base Troopers aren't playing, then neither is the Z6. The missing Echo Base Troopers, I think a lot of that comes from just not having as maybe as much flavor as maybe a lot of people want.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you want to play something really unique, you're not necessarily going to get that from a figure that does more damage the closer you get if you get within a certain range, and then they're hard to kill. That's really what they do. Wildfire is lots of fun, but otherwise, like putting Kotun in there, okay, now you get more damage. Like it's a really kind of generic list composition, and so I think for right now the Echo Base Troopers they're not. I don't think they'll ever go into other factions because they're just not needed there. They're not. That's not what they're meant to be. But Echo Base Troopers, if you're gonna play them, you're gonna play them in Rebel, and you're probably gonna play them with just a bunch of other troopers. And I'm guessing a lot of it right now is not because the Echo Base Troopers don't have a specific ability that combos really well with another character's ability. It makes them more of your generic throw troopers into a pile to get all of your guns in order kind of a list. And a lot of people probably don't see the other figures as providing enough flavor to make up for the more generic nature of the Echo Base Troopers. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that might be it. Um, and I'll say that we are seeing also a lot of variety, which is good. We're seeing, especially in Empire, just different types of lists, but also like Scum is pretty got some variety between hunters and creatures and brawlers. I think Rebels, you're seeing more of it being distilled down to the best of the best, where we're seeing hunters like Rebel hunters getting repeated a lot, and Rebel power tokens getting kind of repeated a lot, like that core list core that you see common to a lot of lists. Um, so did you? Should we move on to season 7, or did you have anything else you want to say about season 6?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think we've mostly covered it all, but I hope a lot of more. I hope for because I just love the resurgence of all of the variety. I hope the rebel troopers, not just the echo base troopers, but the rebel trooper archetype comes into more prevalence, and a lot of the I hope as other figures come out, a lot of that flavor can really come in. But yeah, let's talk about season 7.
All right, man, you have the floor. Tell me what you like, or tell me what you want to tell me about season 7. I'll let you take it.
Well, do we mean season 7 relating back to season 6, or do we just mean season 7 in general?
No, just talk about season 7.
All right, moving into season 7. Ooh, and I think I put a lot of my thoughts in the Slack so far, but um, I should probably pull up the list, right? I should pull up the
Yeah,
season 7 preview gallery here. All right, we have Heir to the Jedi. So Luke, Hero of the Rebellion, Luke is coming back. That is exciting because along with that, we're also getting Princess Leia is coming back in, Leia Organa, and because she's now a Force user, I am really excited to see what people do with ranged Force users. The command card opportunities there are going to be really interesting. Getting again Hero of the Rebellion Luke with Leia, with now probably Leia's cards, so she can play Son of Skywalker, and then moving Luke around so that they can take lots of range shots, and then use stuff like I don't know if they can use deflection, using like Force Surge and some of those other abilities. I'm excited to see what people do. Josh told me that in playtesting, Hero of the Rebellion Luke felt very strong, but not overpowered. So we'll see. He'll be putting out a lot of damage, and it seems like he'll be the type of figure that he's somewhat of a glass cannon, but he's gonna feel like an Ezra that can just run in there and pick something apart with kind of how he rolls his lightsaber just shredding through your high defense figures, and with his ranged attack. He's going to do a lot of recovering. He's just going to be annoying. I can see an obnoxious list forming. I can see it. Leia's range with and not only does she have range, she has recover, and she's fast, and she's got that command card stuff coming back. That's going to be very very obnoxious in terms of them being hard to get rid of permanently and hard to survive, hard to get away from, so to speak. That military efficiency though is so interesting that I'm already seeing in the Slack the weird things people are coming up with, especially because she can play other people's cards. Stuff like, I mean, you can put Son of Skywalker back in there and then redraw it with R2D2, and then so now she can play it and then Luke can play it right after her to make them go again. The weird shenanigans that are gonna go on with Leia and like Leia chaining together lots of abilities, attacks of all different kinds. It's not just a multi fire like shoot a couple attacks of the same kind type of IG-11 attack. It's just going to be lots of throwing damage in all different directions. I'm excited to see. I don't know if that's going to need nerfed. I do think that might need nerfed eventually once she starts throwing out too many attacks at once. Zeb Aurelios. Spectre Cell is coming back. That is exciting. I'm interested to try Spectre Cell again. I know I've tried it before, but it didn't do well back then. But with with Zeb coming back, this is going to be really interesting, and maybe he'll eventually shift out of the normal comfort zone. Hopefully that'll shake up the old cards that we're used to playing, and we'll get to try something new. Saw Gerrera, I am really excited to see what he does for the Pathfinders. Personally, I don't necessarily care for him. Getting the free weaken and the free blast isn't my style. When I do blast, I like to blast five and just wreck things. So it's not really my style to chip away at people with lots of blast and lots of cleave, but especially with his command card is going to be a lot of fun. I want to play Saw Gerrera with two groups of Pathfinders, probably a Z6 just for the heck of it, and a the blast getting that in there, and Cassian. That is going to be very very enjoyable to see people fan out. I'm hoping maybe we'll get some less of focusing your firepower all into one area and more of fanning out and just surrounding people because of that command card. The Grand Inquisitor is terrifying. I am so excited to play with that cleave. That cleave is either going to be really overpowered and annoying, or it's going to be one of the most enjoyable things in the game. He is going to be so funny. The memes that are going to come out of that, because now you can get cleave six in one shot. So what are some of I'm looking through the cards. You can one shot. I mean, you could two shot Princess Leia with that. You would be coming pretty close to getting rid of something like Cad Bane. You're gonna one shot something like a hired gun. It's just gonna start deleting things,
Wait,
and
how are
I
you getting Cleave
cannot wait.
6?
Huh?
How are you getting Cleave 6?
With his command card. Sorry.
That's Cleave 2, so you're getting
Right?
Cleave
It gives
5.
cleave two and cleave one. Is it cleave five?
No. Yeah, his
I
command
thought it
card
was
just
cleave
gives
six. He
Cleave
gets
2.
cleave two and cleave one. Is it just cleave two?
Yeah. I think you're thinking of
Ooh.
Tress's command card.
That's yep. I am thinking of Tress's. It's a lot of cleave though,
Yeah.
and at that range, just his ability to punish you. Again, I'm gonna put him in a list with Darth Maul, and that is gonna be hilarious to watch my opponent flail, because once Darth Maul gets in there, there's no escaping my damage.
Yeah, I'll just say we didn't
Do
we
do
didn't
you?
increase his cleave amount at all. He just is rolling an extra green die when he does his lightsaber throw.
Which means that now he's gonna be able to actually use that surge and get damage through,
Yeah.
which is gonna be hilarious because once you can actually get him to the table, like, yeah. And a
Yep.
reroll because if you're attacking someone adjacent, you're still going to use the lightsaber throw.
Mhm.
So you'll still get the reroll, and then you can cleave, which is hilarious.
Yep.
The I'm trying to figure out where I feel on the shore troopers because I love the shore troopers design, but I think they will fill in the same kind of generic area that the echo based troopers fill in. But the fact that they're cheap, the fact that they're reinforceable, is just going to make them the perfect thing to throw into a list. I know I've made plenty of lists where I threw in heavy stormtroopers or jet troopers or something, and I just wanted a few extra troopers that can use all the command cards and that will be able to play the same type of game that I want to, no matter what. The Purge troopers are just gonna be they're just gonna be fun. The Purge commander I think is gonna combine a lot with temporary alliance, getting that reroll in there, actually being able to use that well. The shock grenade will probably just be a stay away from me item, but his ability to stay at a really long range, he'll probably just sit there with the line of sight, all of his teammates get his rerolls, and those Purge troopers can go in and they do feel more powerful than a riot, which is nice, and they can't reinforce. So it definitely feels good when you're using them, and it allows you to finally counter pick in a way that's fair. Being able to counter pick, but everybody knows that hey, that's what they're designed to do, is gonna feel really good. They just get a lot of free stuff that I'm excited to play with. And then we have to talk about Cad Bane and the Rancor, Terran Malicos. I haven't played Fallen Order, so I can't speak to him, but getting another Force user in Scum is fun. We'll have to see. I think he'll just end up getting temporary allianced into places, or he'll use temporary alliance a ton. He seems like the perfect temporary alliance bait. Cad Bane is probably just going to be that awesome 5 point damage dealer. And I'll say it now. If you didn't see it on the Slack, the only thing that could possibly be disappointing about him, because you guys nailed his design, it's amazing. He doesn't have a flamethrower. So I'm interested to see as the season goes on, will he get a flamethrower or will he stay a damage dealer? But as a damage dealer, he is loads of fun. Just all of the I can see him just having a lot of weird tricks up his sleeve. Not even just that he combines well with other figures, but being able to pull off weird stunts is awesome. Hired guns, I think we've already discussed a lot, and the HKs are just going to be a nice generic hunter droid that you can throw into your droid list or your hunter list, and that'll feel pretty good. The last figure is the Rancor. He is my favorite figure so far from season 7, although Cad Bane gives him a run for his money. Crippling Blow is so funny. Oh my gosh, imagine going up to Darth Vader round 1 and just saying you don't get to activate this round. That is what the Rancor does. And the amount of being able to reach around a corner and poke at someone like Mando or IG-11 and then jump back around the corner so that they don't get their attacks off is just hilarious. And his being able to go again, he's going to be just funny to watch because he will cancel people's attacks with his defense and his recover, cancel people's ability to hide or to take advantage of opportunities because now he can get that extra activation, and he can cancel people's activations by just hitting them and running away. He is going to be hilarious to watch everything get canceled against him. He will control the game, and he doesn't even do that much damage when you really think about it. So it's not. I don't think it'll be that. If it is overpowered, it'll only be a little just negative play experience wise, because he doesn't do too much damage. He's just going to be hilarious to play against, because it feels like you're really stuck, even though you realize that your characters aren't dead. So I can't wait to get him to the table and getting that miniature to the table when we get in person. I am so excited to get it to the table. And
Nice.
creatures are back, baby. Creatures have a queen piece now. They finally have a queen piece, and I will be playing a ton of creatures for this season. So watch out for me in the playtesting league. I will be playing a whole heck of a lot of creatures.
Did you want to talk about any of the neutral cards?
Ah, yes. The neutral cards, but
They're at the top.
uh, I do think Rebel's gonna get a lot of weird ranged stuff, and Scum is gonna get some weird new archetypes with creatures and filling. It feels like a filling in the gaps season. If I were to put words to it, the season feels like this is going to be filling in the gaps. We're making up for lost time with the Scum. We're filling in the creatures that needed a centerpiece. We're filling in the 5 point mercenary figures. Sorry, Vento, but yeah, I we you can't be the only one. We're filling in the ranged force users. We're filling in what with Empire. We're filling in the Imperial force users and the ability to use hunters. And then we're filling in some command cards that were always going to be really cool that never got to be tried out. Smuggling compartment is going to be interesting as a counter to Thrawn. I know a lot of people really hate Thrawn in Intel League. So now, whenever they complain about it, I get to say, then just run smuggling compartment, and then they have to shut up and listen to me. That'll be hilarious to do to people.
The smuggling compartment actually
But I
doesn't work
think it'll
against
be.
Thrawn. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, you're right.
We tried,
I keep
but
thinking that because
yeah,
yeah, it's there was only so much you can do with you can't put that many words on a card. But
yeah.
whenever people complain about Intel leak, I'll just say smuggling compartment. I think I don't know if it'll get used that often. Honestly, I think it'll be like a rest in peace type card that just doesn't show up that often because it's only going to be helpful against a very specific archetype. But I think if you're really scared about that, and if enough more new cards come out that mess with your cards, it can be helpful. And the ability to then get rid of one of your trash cards in favor of a better one or swap stuff around is nice. So I think the fact that it gets a little value outside of that is going to be helpful. Savage Vigor, I know we talked a lot about. It feels like an anti four dice card. That's really all it is, and it will primarily be run with the Rancor because only I can see maybe running it with the Wampa, but it's the main goal of that card is just to stop characters who just hit you really hard, like Han with the whole Kotun thing. Characters who just like to throw a ton of stuff at you in one attack, stopping that from happening. Characters who like to sit in the back and focus up and get a bunch of power tokens and get tools for the job. When they throw that at you, it helps to negate some of that so that your defense dice can help take care of the rest. Triangulate is going to be fun. I can't remember. It's been a while since you've complained, but whoever it is that keeps saying they want to try triangulate, it's here. I will definitely be trying it. It looks it looks nifty. Looks useful. Of no importance. An anti celebration. It's the exact opposite. I think it'll probably end up being in most lists that have non-unique figures, especially if they have non-unique figures with 4 points or more. It'll be an auto include. It's just it's just helpful to help negate the problem of how quickly people get out up to 40 VPs. And then lastly, reduced to rubble. Those rubble tokens have always felt like they're underused because every time you shoot someone and they end up getting a rubble token, it feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. And the only time it's not, it usually you can just dodge around it because hallways are 2 spaces wide, right? Well, now with the Rebel tokens coming into this giant, you get a giant swath of Rebel tokens. So anytime you're playing against heavy weapons, you'll have to know that hey, if I slink back and send one guy in and expect everyone else to follow, they could just block off an entire hallway with Rebel, and then you can't charge in and wreck people with melee figures. And so finally getting to use those Rebel tokens is going to be amazing, and the damage that comes out of it is just going to be it's just nice to know that you're getting so much damage out of it, even if it's not usually going to make a game flipping difference. Like it's not going to flip the game very often. I'm very excited to get that one to the table just because it feels good to use for how much damage tokens you get to put on your opponent's stuff. And the fact that you get to use rubble, I am really excited for that.
Nice. Well, I am out of time, but that was very impressive. You got to every card in that amount of time. But thanks
I
for
have a lot of thoughts, clearly.
thanks for coming on, Josh, and I really appreciate you talking to me, talking about
You
season
did it
six
again.
and season seven. Oh my God, why am I doing that? Destructor. Just I think just it's
Yeah.
Destructor is not a real name, and my brain is just going for like a real name. So, anyway, Destructor, thank you for
Yeah,
coming on, and appreciate you doing that.
no problem.
And we'll hope you enjoy season seven.
I will. I will be playing so much Cad Bane and Rancor. It'll be like nobody's business. And if it helps at all, my name is Gabe. So
Oh,
if
okay.
if it helps you to remember,
I
Yeah,
know that from sending you prizes, but I never see you use it online, so I didn't want to do that.
yeah,
But
it wasn't public knowledge, but
all right, Gabe,
it is
thank you
now.
for coming on. That is much easier for me to say. So thanks, Gabe, and thank you everybody for
Yes.
watching. We'll see you next time.